Welcome to Unplug, the Connection series. Today's episode is Unplug to be all in. I am Amy.
I'm Cleopatra.
And I'm Caitlin.
So, what do you both think about being all in? What does it mean to unplug? For me, it means I've got to get disconnected and unplug from all the lies, the temptations, the unhealthy habits, the vices that hold me down and keep me from God's good and what God wants me to be doing. So, technology, of course we're on technology right now, but we've got to step away and get quiet. I love quiet time, which we have a video under mental tire movement. We have the series, the video there explaining what quiet time is. We've just got to get quiet and turn off all the noise, the distractions, and listen and converse with God, but also listen of what is God saying to do. And so when we got all of it going on, it's not doable.
Yeah, and I think it's asking yourself, when's the last time that you were fully, truly present without distractions? And it means taking that time to focus on connecting with God, connecting with your friends, with your family, and with ourselves, I think, in a meaningful way. Like, what are we doing with our time? What are we doing with our hands? How are we stewarding well what God has given us? And so I think that's a good starting point, is asking yourself, when was the last time I was truly present? And what can I do now to be more present, to be all in?
Yeah, and I think that I think we may have talked about this in different videos, I'm not for sure, but we've talked about how a lot of things have negative connotations to them because it's been taken to extremes. It could be in multiple different ways, but like when Caitlin mentions when was the last time I was present with myself and then or with God and then with myself and then the people around me, whether it's family or friends or whatever, sometimes the idea of taking time for yourself or whatever is taken to an extreme and it gets way out of proportion to what it should be and like what the core of it is. But if you're not taking that time to be with God and with yourself and then with your family and friends, then it's not any healthier than being busy all the time and not taking any time. And so I think for me, it's like, just recognizing that and then asking myself, what are some things that I enjoy doing to unplug, whether it's just to connect with God, whether it's to do something that I enjoy personally with myself, I guess you would say, or with the people around me, whether it's playing a game or it's going for a walk or whatever it is. And like we've suggested before many times, make a list of those things so then when you have the opportunity to unplug, you can look at that list and maybe oh, I'm going to be able to do this with this person, or it's just going to be me for this 20 minutes. You can look at that list and pick something that's going to fill you with more joy and fill you with more presence.
And I think when you're talking about that, when it goes in a direction that's beyond just taking that time, it's me-dom versus wisdom. That's what I call it anyway. Me-dom, the me mentality, the me, or me first, me only. Instead of me too, instead of all of us. But I think being all in, I think we make a lot of excuses and justify these days, humans do. And I think it's always been around, but it's like, oh, well, at least they're doing this. Well, at least they're doing this. Maybe they only have a toe or four toes in. Well, at least they're doing that. And it's like, okay, but when, why are we just getting by? Why are we just la-di-da-di-da, why aren't we all in? Why aren't we fully committed to God, fully committed to our spirit, to our mental and physical health, and fully committed to our family before we get to the rest of the world?
Yeah, I had it was funny, our last Tuesday night Bible study with my girls, we were talking, and I can't even remember the subject, but she's there was a sixth grader, mind you, and she said a lot of people have make up their excuse that they're too busy and they're too busy for time with God, but really they're too busy picking up their phone and scrolling. And I just had that like wow moment because even a sixth grader noticed. And it's so easy to live like half present, scrolling, multitasking, distracted. And I see it. I saw it this weekend. Just somebody trying to have a conversation with somebody and their phone glued to their screen. And to me, it's just sad that we've made it so important. We value it over time with family, with loved ones. And distraction, even when surrounded by people, it's insane. And I think constant digital connection can distract. It can lead to spiritual disconnection. And so I think constantly being plugged into technology, all these different things, can actually I think that when things are so loud and we allow these things in, we don't allow room for God's voice. And so God says, be still and know that I am God. And I think stillness does start with unplugging from our devices, and it starts with well, just like our topic, choosing to be all in with him and with our family and our loved ones, and taking that time. We need to unplug, and I think that's a big reason why we need to unplug. There are sixth graders out there noticing and realizing, there's something wrong with just scrolling all the time.
Mhm. Well, we were watching a movie last night, and the premise was like it was these two angels that are like supposed to set people up here on Earth. And they were so annoyed at the people that were constantly on their phones, and they literally were saying they're on their phones and they're scrolling and they're I can't remember what all the things were, and it's so funny because when we were sitting there, Isaiah and I, we were like, oh, are they gonna put like a plug for the Unplug series in here? Because it literally they sounded like us. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of the fact that it's become so normalized that our phones are basically an extension of us. It could be it could be multiple devices. Technically, it could be someone's laptop, it could be their iPad or tablet or whatever, like whatever one that they tend to go to, but phones are the most easily accessible, the most easily, I don't want to say transportable, but like the smallest, you know? And so it's just funny when we were watching that movie, it's like, imagine like if you had loved ones looking down on you being like, you're wasting your time doing this when you have all these people or whoever is around you to be present with. And so I thought that was kind of funny when we were watching that last night because Isaiah and I just looked at each other and were like, it's very true.
Well, and ask yourself, we all have to ask ourselves, where are we all in? Where in our life are we actually all in? Are we all in with God? Are we all in with our mental health? Are we all in with our physical health? Are we all in with our family? And just these alone, that should take up a lot. I mean, before we ever get to the rest, before we even get to technology, it's like you said, it's socially acceptable. It's the cultural norm. It's justified. The excuses are there. We're supposed to just allow people to be sloth, zombies, sleepwalking, and no. That's all I have to say is no. God doesn't want that for any of us. He didn't create us for that.
No. And when I think of what it means to be all in, like if you're watching this and you're like, so what do they mean by being all in? I think being all in, like Amy was saying, is giving God, your family, your friends, your church, and your calling your full attention. Talk about, I think about a wholehearted living, Don't have divided loyalties. Don't have half-hearted worship. Don't have halfway obedience. Do it all the way. Do it wholeheartedly. Whatever God is giving you to steward, do it wholeheartedly. And I think about some practical examples where you can do that is being fully present at the dinner table, during prayer, during church, during conversation with a friend. Be fully present in just that, because it's become so rare. Even just simple as like prayer, we get distracted during that. We get distracted at our dinner table. We get distracted even at churches. There are distractions there. There's distractions in the grocery store line. Like, I mean, just I think it's important. You can't connect deeply with others while you're constantly distracted. And even the Bible says, whatever you do, do it heartily. And I think being all in is to do it with all of your heart, to do this with all of your might.
I think we kind of always circle back to if you're the first person in your family or your friend group or whatever it is, to do this or to become aware of this. I feel like recognizing that you have that gift, you have that opportunity, or actually recognizing that you have that opportunity is a gift. And so, like Caitlin likes to say, stewarding it well, you have the chance to make a difference, even if it's just in your immediate family or just with the friends that you hang out with or whatever. You have the opportunity to make that difference with those people. And then you don't know how those people can make a difference with the people they know. And it can just snowball in a very positive and like amazing way almost. And like it can have a ripple effect on people that you wouldn't even maybe know that it ever affected. And so I think it's also like not taking it lightly when we say, are you all in on this or are you all in on that? Like actually honestly reflect and ask yourself if you are, and if you aren't, why aren't you? What's stopping you? Like ask yourself those questions even if they're uncomfortable at first. Because when you start to face those things and you start to ask yourself those questions, you're going to realize maybe where you are actually falling short. You're going to realize what's eating up your time and distracting you from these purposes and these callings. And then I feel like when you start to become aware of those, it gives you the space and even the time too, if you're starting to be less distracted, to start making the changes. And all that we always say is take one little small step. So maybe today take one small step. It doesn't have to be a big one, but just take one step towards being less distracted or being more present. And then just take another one tomorrow and like keep doing that instead of focusing on it has to be this big one. Maybe break it down into smaller steps that are easy, or not easy, but accessible for you to do with what you have right now.
And to bounce off of everything you all been saying, you know, you were talking about divided and half-hearted, and you know, this is like Cleopatra said, an honest reflection. To me, honest reflections are paying attention to the elephants in our lives, the elephants that are not going anywhere. They're just getting bigger, and the more we avoid and ignore, the more they're going to grow. That's just the way it is. The domino effect she was talking about, the ripple effect being contagious and infectious in really godly, fun, great ways. You know, be that. Be the light. Be the light like they talk about in Matthew. You know, when we face the elephants, we do have to face guilt, shame, greed, lust, sloth, you know, anger, and so much more. That's, I guess, when we're able to look at that and say, I can do this and I can face these. And the more I face them, boy, the better I'm going to feel and the better I'm going to be able to help people. Be that first kernel of popcorn. You know, Jesus went off and took quiet time. He went off and rested. He got away from the noise, because when we're in the noise, can't remember, I read something this morning, I'll have to find it, but you know, when we're in the noise, we can't hear God. God is quietest when our lives are the loudest, and when we're the quietest, we can hear God. We can converse with God.
Yeah, and I think it makes me think too, just practical ways to unplug. I think about our 31-day challenge, and we're going to do that again in November. And I really encourage you to take this with us. Just we have different practical ways on that calendar that you can do every single day, little steps, little action steps that you can take to unplug, like, setting a morning routine, an evening routine without screens, creating phone-free zones, and scheduling just a weekly digital Sabbath. Brad and I have been doing that on Sundays, just being away from social media. I tell you what, it has been so much fun just to enjoy connecting with each other a little bit more on the Sundays and just being intentional. And I think another practical way, just replace your screen time with soul time, whether that's a prayer walk, whether that's journaling, whether that's worship music. I encourage you to check in on how often you're reaching for your phone in the morning, because it can be convicting for all of us. But I think it's healthy to observe the habits that you have and to maybe replace those habits that aren't necessarily good, with something that's going to nourish your soul and your spirit and your mind.
I think that because we were talking about how, with the honest reflection, it can be uncomfortable or whatever. But I think that another thing to remember is that it can also be fun. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everything that comes to you, what you realize you need to change or whatever, is going to be fun. But if you start to replace some of your habits, I guess you would say technology habits, with more real, like, life things, it can be fun. You can have, and that's why in our challenge we have some things that are maybe a few harder steps, or whatever you would call it, and then we have some that is like send a handwritten note to somebody, or like Caitlin said, go for a prayer walk, or cook or bake something. And so, like, I think that remembering that it can be fun at the same time as it's a challenge is a really good thing to remember, because chances are that our mind is not going to resist it as much. So it's not a matter of like making light of the areas where you need to make the changes or anything, but it is filling that new time that you have away from technology with meaningful things, so you're not just finding other mindless things to do in that void. And so, like, some of my favorite things to do is to read, or we like to cook, and we like to bake. We just don't always want to have the baked goodies on hand, but we love to bake. Going for a walk when it's nice enough, like that kind of thing. Those are some of the things that I really enjoy, and they're just going back to very grounded, present. I don't want to say tasks. They're not tasks. Activities that can take you away from the technology and just force you to be more present in a really good way. And then I feel like once you start incorporating those into your daily life, you're going to look forward to them more than you anticipated, even maybe in the beginning, and you're going to really enjoy them. And then you'll want to encourage more people to do it, and then that's the snowball effect that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, and we're going to unleash this a little bit deeper. I heard a word today that I have not heard for so long, is solitude. So, I love the thesaurus. I love synonyms and antonyms. I use my thesaurus every single day, right? So let's think about, okay, we were talking about, like, with Jesus would go off in the peace and quiet, he would have solitude. Okay, they went off in the wilderness for 40 days, right? I've done this 40-day program over and over and over again. And in one of our Unplug 31-day challenges, we talked about boring and the word being bored. So you can sign up for that and learn more about it. But let's go with what solitude means. Solitude means being able to focus and be free of distractions and be disciplined to be able to be in the present and not be dependent upon somebody else motivating us, somebody else telling us what to do, somebody else distracting us, or technology distracting us. Being more mindful, being more meaningful. We will be more connected, because what do we hear from everybody? Everybody is more disconnected, divided, separated, isolated, lonely, alone, empty. What else? It's time wasted. Every single second is precious. So why are we wasting it on the lies, on emptiness?
Well, and there's so much reward. Like I feel like there's probably going to be people watching this, or maybe there are people out there who just, when you talk about unplugging or putting your phone away, they hold a grudge against it, or they're hold tightly to their phones, and I don't understand that. A screen has gotten in the way of a lot of things, but there's a reward of being all in. I think about you've what I can personally gain from unplugging. I regain peace. I have more creativity. I can hear from God, and I have better relationships. And it's just something as simple as maybe even choosing to, instead of scrolling, baking for, our church Bible study. I'll just bake sometimes for that. And it feels more exciting. It feels more fulfilling. And I just encourage you, the unplugging leads to spiritual growth. It leads to just maturity. It leads to disconnecting leads us to purpose. And I think it's important. If we draw nigh to God, He's going to draw near to us. And so when we intentionally choose this, and I think that can go for even just our relationships with people. If we choose to draw near to them, if we choose to be loving and to be kind, what are we going to get in return? And there's so much reward just for unplugging and choosing to be all in the present. There's a good reward for it. So I don't think you should look at this as something negative. It's something wonderful.
And speak on the solitude, because I actually really like that word. But
I know it's a beautiful word.
Yeah, and I think that you almost have to be all in to be comfortable with solitude, because otherwise you're going to be constantly distracted. And I do think that our mind can just start working and thinking of things, so it's not that it's necessarily it doesn't necessarily feel completely natural when you just sit there and like to not have any thoughts, like, because then if you're trying to picture like a blank room, you're trying to picture a blank room. But to be comfortable with solitude, I think you do have to be all in. And if you're seeking solitude and the space that it opens up, then I think you are taking that step towards being all in the other areas of your life too. And so I would invite you just to kind of maybe even like look up the word or write it down, or write down some of like the synonyms of it, and even maybe the antonyms, so you can say, okay, this is what I do want, this is what I don't want. But having words like that inspire me, at least, and having the reminders, like I have some sticky notes around one of my mirrors in my room, and just like looking at them, even just in passing, they're just little reminders that stick with you, or have the opportunity to stick with you and maybe make a difference in what you decide to do next, or what you decide to do and like later that day or whatever. And so I guess what I'm saying is maybe make some sticky notes, or even just start with one or something to remind you of, whether it's the word solitude or whether it's just simply remember to unplug, or whatever it is. Those little reminders can go a long way towards actually unplugging and then enjoying the moments when you're more connected to yourself or to God or to your family or friends.
And if we go just even a little bit deeper, being that first kernel of popcorn, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be people that are going to resist. It may be all or a few or one. And knowing, like they both were talking about, but we're talking about vices here. We're talking about unhealthy or bad habits that it has become, we've learned them. We've been programmed, we've been conditioned. 95% of us subconsciously, we have soaked this in because of the excuses, and because of it being culturally accepted and socially accepted, solitude is like become a negative thing in society. And it's like, wait a minute, God made us and our bodies to function a certain way of when we function best, and when we are at our best, and when we're the healthiest. That was one of the gazillion reasons of homeschooling, is we wanted them also to learn to be content. And like I talked about, we bring up the word bored. Solitude, being able to focus on an activity and do something instead of spending how many hours a day sitting in that classroom, it's not that we wanted to be solitude isolated. We're around people a lot, but it's also being able to make that choice of when we are or aren't, and being able to learn in all of that. And everybody has to do what's going on in their lives, but our actions speak loud. Our actions is what we receive in our life. God made it that way.
And I think that children should be encouraged to enjoy solitude, not to be reclusive. There's a difference between the two, but to enjoy, whether it's playing by themselves or, even enjoying each other's company. It's not that there's a problem with being around people, but it's, if they can't enjoy that, then they're not going to be happy unless they're constantly getting attention from somebody or something. And so I think that, like, from my personal experience, when I was younger, I didn't mind reading a book or doing something on my own. And I don't think that children are encouraged in that anymore. I feel like it's, they get a device to suffice them or whatever it is, and they don't even have the opportunity. Like, the opportunity doesn't even present itself for children and for adults. Actually, it could go either way. But, like, if we don't give the opportunity, especially to children, because they can't necessarily, they don't have the, they're not, I can't think of the word. There's a word and I can't think of it. They can't necessarily just know to choose that on their own, versus adults, we have that choice. But if you give them the opportunity, just 10 minutes of letting them just do something on their own, as long as it's in a healthy way, but like, encourage that. And then also, as an adult, maybe encourage the other people around you to do that too. And but yeah, as far as children go, I just feel like they're not even given the opportunity to be okay in the stillness and in the quiet and stuff. It's like, it's supposed to be go, 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 and have constant
instant
like
gratification.
Yeah, like, it has to be, you have to have some kind of technology, you have to have some
stimuli,
form of entertainment, basically.
Dopamine
And
hits.
yeah, you can't learn to entertain yourself, We used to play with empty bottles, or my brother always loved doing dishes in the sink when he was like 2 years old. And so just like having those things, it's not about doing nothing necessarily. Sometimes it's good to just sit in the quiet, but it's about finding other ways for maybe entertainment or for fun or whatever. And that's the whole point of unplugging, especially speaking to older children and then like adults. It's more unplugging is to find those little pockets of enjoyment in other things that are more fulfilling in the long run. And you're going to look back in your life and be more, you're going to think of those moments more than you are going to think of, oh, I remember scrolling on this particular page at this exact time. You'll remember, oh, I remember I went for a walk, or I enjoyed this with my mom, or whatever it is. And so I think that that's also something to reflect on, is if I was looking back a year from now, what moments am I going to remember the most? It probably isn't going to be when you were scrolling on your phone or your laptop. It's going to be the actual meaningful connections or the meaningful moments.
Well, and I would say something that to take into consideration is the technology and everything, but I'm going to put a plug here for, I'm a firm believer in intergenerational habits, patterns, traumas, the energy, those being passed on from one generation to next. Actually, in scriptures, talks about it plenty, going from one generation to the next. And we have to break those cycles. And children are not in a position, what happens to any children, they are pure and innocent to a T. And we've got to address those things. But with technology, there's instant access to about anything. And we've got to be aware that even as adults, we have this at our fingertips. And it can be a great, useful, wise tool, or it can be disaster, disease, and destruction. And I'm sorry, but it's either one or the other. It's all in this way, or if you have a few toes in one way, it's still, and so I think Cleopatra mentioned you can take baby steps, and Caitlin's mentioned this, I'm not talking, but understand that it really is one or the other, and it is a matter of life, that you are precious. Your life is precious. You're pure. You're innocent. God made you to be this amazing light here on earth. And, so I don't know if anybody else has anything or if you want to go to takeaways.
I did want to mention, I don't remember where I seen this. It's been a little while. But there was a quote or something that said, for as much as I use my phone, I've never seen it in my dreams. And it's really interesting if you try to think of your dreams, or even from this point forward when you wake up, like if you can remember your dreams, because obviously sometimes they just like vanish
really
from your
wacky.
mind. But I've realized that I don't know. There might have been phones in my dreams occasionally, but I don't recognize it like a lot. And so it's just really interesting to pay attention to that, of like something that's so integral. And usually, you can piece your dreams together, like pieces of them, because of what you experienced or what you were thinking about. But it's just something to pay attention to, because I think that's a really interesting thought, is this device that is constantly with us doesn't show up in our dreams. And so, I don't know, that's just something to pay attention to and see if it's something that you realize, or if it does show up in your dreams, I guess then it kind of proves it wrong, but it's just an interesting thought.
That's really good.
Well, and one other thing is, I talk about vices a lot. You can go as addictions, bad habits, unhealthy habits, wrong habits, whatever it may be. The elephants I talk about, well, maybe make a list, and this takes some serious, honest reflection, but maybe start by making a list and, putting phone, screen, and it includes TV, everything. Radio, tablets, iPads, laptops, everything. But then also honestly reflect also on any other vices or the lies or the temptations, the habits, that it's like, okay, this is really taking me away from my good and the rewards God has for me and all those I interact with. Honest reflection, man, great rewards. So I suppose that would be my takeaway. I'll start the takeaways. It takes a lot, and you're going to have to be really honest, but it's a very rewarding experience.
Well, and for my takeaway, I go back to a sixth grader that was sitting there in Bible study telling me, hey, our issue is we're scrolling. And I just think about that, like when we've done a video on this, the example that you're setting, what are you doing to break those habits so those kids can see that there's something more important than just scrolling on your phone? I challenge you just to do one little unplug habit or step this week, whether that's, a 24-hour social media fast, whether that's a tech-free hour, whether that's choosing to, hey, I'm going to take my kid and we're going to go on a walk instead of, choosing just whenever we have a break, sit on our phones. So I think it's important you need to, in order to pour into others, you've got to first take care of yourself and your walk with God, and then you can pour into others, and then you can be a good example and a light. I think you got to deal with those issues, and I encourage you to take those steps so that other people can see it and see that, hey, there's another way, and there's a way that I can really enjoy life when I do start stewarding well the things that I have. I can't help it. I always use stewarding well because that's, I feel like, a huge testimony in my own life. We have to take care of what God's given us.
Mm-hmm. And I think that to play off of both of what you guys have said, for my takeaway is that it does take prudence and awareness every day. It's not like one day you're going to wake up and everything has, well, no, I'm not going to say everything couldn't have changed, but I mean, like, it takes it's going to be constant throughout your entire life, so you can have healthier habits that are in place, and you don't have to be as, like, as particular because you have replaced certain habits and you just have that, but it still takes the prudence to not go backwards or to still be paying attention or whatever, and it takes constant awareness. And I think that to view that as a gift, again, when you have that awareness, it's a gift to be able to do it in your own life and then also to help those around you. And so I guess my takeaway is once you start taking those steps and noticing the changes in your life, don't keep it just for yourself, share it with others. You don't have the control over what they do with it or if they make any changes in their life, but you do have the opportunity to share it. And I think that that is one thing that God has given us, is to share our blessings, not just keep them for ourselves. And so my takeaway would be to be prudent in your choices, just starting today and then again tomorrow, and then also to share how it's helped you with your loved ones, with your family members, with your friends, and it can become something that you didn't even recognize that taking that first little step would turn it into.
Well, excuse me. And we have what we call the ABC method. A, you become aware, you recognize, and you admit. And it's repenting. It's turning to God, and it's doing honest reflection. And then B, we've got to figure out what beliefs and behaviors, what thinking and actions is false, is the lies. And then C, we've got to figure out, okay, how are we really going to make the change? And when we're repenting, it means we're thinking new, we're renewing, like in Romans, and then also we're taking the action to make the changes. So that's our ABC. And I would encourage you also to sign up for the Unplug 31-day challenge. You can find it on our website, and it's a great time. You can join us, and we appreciate you. We are thankful for you. No one nor family shall do life alone, and take care.